Hey everyone, I'm RRabbits, welcome back to my channel and welcome to Monster Analysis. Up for analysis today is Atum's Bodyguard. General Atum was discovered inside a rock by Bogarek, the leader of a clan of minor dwarves enslaved by Warhawk and a clan of chaos dwarves. When Atum came to life after being unearthed, he freed the miners and took Bogarek with him as his very own bodyguard. And so I guess this monster actually has a name, it's Bogarek, and here he is, he's a pretty cool looking monster in my opinion. And I'm wondering if this Warhawk character is going to be Atum's nemesis, so maybe we get some insight on the future nemesis monster for General Atum. And so anyways, as of the time recording this video, there's a total of 30 Earth legendary monsters. So I'm going to be comparing Atum's bodyguard, his stats, his trait, and all of his skills to the remaining monsters. And so starting things off with power, he has a power of 3,377, which actually puts him in 19th place, so not a really high power for Earth monsters. And as for his life of 30,461, this actually puts him in 21st place, so yet again not a very high life for Earth monsters. And then lastly we have a speed of 3,355, which puts him in 18th place along with monsters like Darude and Bastet, so once again, not a very good speed. So he's lacking in power, lacking in life, and lacking in speed. At least when compared to the other 29 Earth monsters. And oddly enough, for his trait, he's immune to blind, which we haven't seen an Earth monster immune to blind since Rockantium, the very first Earth legendary monster. So this is kind of weird, and being an Earth monster, it doesn't really help him out. Being an Earth monster, you always have to watch out for being stunned, or there's always Bronzes who can mega stun. But having immune to blind, there's not even that many Earth monsters that can blind you if I'm not mistaken. This monster might be one of the only ones that actually has blind skills. And so far, just based on his stats and his trait, he's not looking that good. As for his ultimate attack, Dwarf Energy Drink deals massive earth damage to one enemy, applies stun to all enemies. So this skill targets a single enemy dealing 65 earth-based damage, and then it also stuns all of the enemy monsters. So for an ultimate attack, I don't consider it to be that good. For one, it's earth-based as opposed to being special-based, and it's also a single target instead of an AoE, so you can only target one monster with earth-based damage, and the damage output isn't even that high, it's only 65. He actually has single skills that are stronger than 65, and so I do definitely like that it's an AoE stun, but overall I don't really consider this much of a special skill. As for his skills group 1, there's nothing really too amazing. Shield Damager is kinda nice because it's no cooldown, special based, 40 damage, and it can remove shields, but he has better versions of skills group 2 and 3. And speaking about skills group 2, let's move on to Shadow Buckler. Removes shield from one enemy, deals very heavy special damage to one enemy, requires cooldown. So this skill targets a single enemy dealing 60 special based damage, it costs 30 stamina, and it only has 1 turn cooldown, so you can revolve this skill easily, and it does remove the enemy's shield, which is the perfect move to use against Earth monsters, because they tend to apply a lot of shields to themselves and to their teammates. And overall, this is one skill you may want to consider running on your monster. Moving on over to Mithril Pickaxe, deals heavy earth damage to one enemy, applies quicksand to one enemy. So 50 earth-based damage to one enemy monster, costs 28 stamina, has no cooldown, which means you can spam the skill as much as you want to, and it applies quicksand. Quicksand for the remaining 4 turns will drain 15% of the enemy's life, thus a total of 60% of their life. And even though this skill has no cooldown, has a low stamina cost, and can apply quicksand, I'm not going to be recommending this skill because he has a stronger version of skills group 3. Although the trade-off is it does have a way higher cooldown. And next up in skills group 2 we have Atum Fanatic. Applies shield 50% to itself, applies immunity to stun to itself, applies damage boost to itself, requires cooldown. And so Atum's bodyguard has a self skill, which is kind of odd considering he's supposed to be Atum's bodyguard. You would think he had like a team skill, not a self skill. Anyways, a self skill that gives him a big shield, which is a 50% shield, and so if you use this skill when he has base life, that's like a 15k shield, that's pretty nice. It also gives him a damage boost, which increases his damage output, and he's immune to stun, and also mega stun for the next 2 turns. And in my opinion, this is definitely a good skill. You guys have heard me say over and over again, when a monster has a self skill, they're pretty much immune to possession, and considering that Baba Yaga is now an earth monster with an AoE possession skill, this could definitely come in handy because Baba Yaga is insanely fast. She has a base speed of 3498. So in a situation where you are facing a Baba Yaga and you can go before her, well, if she does her AoE possession skill, that doesn't matter. You give yourself a big shield, you give yourself a damage boost, and you're also going to give yourself stun immunity. Not to mention, Baba Yaga does have an AoE blind skill, so I guess it might be kind of a good thing that Atum's bodyguard has a natural immunity to blind. And you know, the more I think about it, this monster is really like just a counter to Baba Yaga as opposed to being anything else. This skill combined with his natural immunity to blind makes him the perfect counter to use against Baba Yaga. Wow, that's crazy. So out of all of his skills, I would say this is definitely a must-have skill. And so moving on over to skills group 3, we have Angry Lampyridae. Deals moderate special damage to all enemies, applies blind to all enemies, requires cooldown. And so here we have a special based AoE skill that deals 40 damage to all of the enemy monsters. It costs 37 stamina, it only has a 2 turn cooldown, and it applies blind. And the next best thing to having an AoE immobilizing skill is having AoE blind, because now the enemies will have a 50% less chance to hit you. And considering skills already don't have 100% accuracy, it's usually 95 or 90%, a subtraction of 50% accuracy really helps your chance to not get hit. So again, this is another must-have skill. And next up we have Tunnel Maker. Deals massive earth damage to one enemy, applies quicksand to one enemy, requires cooldown. This skill targets a single enemy dealing 70 damage, it costs 31 stamina with a 3 turn cooldown, and it applies quicksand. Now, even though this monster doesn't necessarily have the highest power, because this skill deals 70 damage, he can still pack quite a punch. And aside from that 70 damage, that also applies quicksand. So if you manage to take out just 85% of the enemy's HP with this attack, the quicksand will do the rest, because no monster in the game is immune to quicksand. So again, this monster may not have the highest power, but because his skills are really powerful, he has the 70 damage skill, he has the 60 damage skill from skills group 2, he can still arguably be used as an attacker. Not to mention he also has the 40 damage AoE blind skill that's special based. And so this is another skill you may want to consider running. And last but not least, in skills group 3 we have Shield Breaker. Remove shield from all enemies, deals heavy special damage to all enemies, requires cooldown. Here we have a special based AoE that deals 45 damage to all of the enemy monsters, however it does have a 40 stamina cost which is pretty darn high and a 3 turn cooldown. And again, like I said, it removes all of the enemy shields. So I find it funny that this is supposed to be Atum's bodyguard, yet it looks like he can counter General Atum, because Atum is very well known for giving a full shield to all of his teammates. And so overall, once again, this is yet another skill you may or may not want to run. It really depends on you, because looking through all of his skills, you could pretty much run anything from skills group 3. I would highly recommend Angry Lampyridae, and of course I would highly recommend Atum Fanatic, so then that just leaves 2 skills, and then Shatter Buckler is also another really good skill. So all in all you have 5 skills to choose from. And so let's just suppose you want to make this monster an attacker. Well, you can run the 60 damage skill and the 70 damage skill, that's already 2 powerful skills, and like I already mentioned, the self skill is like a must-have skill, as is Angry Lampyridae, so that's already your 4 skills. But then if you do run those 4 skills, you won't be running Shield Breaker and you feel like you might be missing out. Especially because another combo you can do is run both of your AoEs, a 40 damage special based AoE followed by a 45 damage special based AoE. That is insanely powerful. Especially because a lot of games you'll probably want to start off with Angry Lampyridae, that way the enemies don't hit you, they're all blinded, they're going to have a less likely chance to hit you, which means on the following turn you can use Shield Breaker to finish them off, or if they happen to apply some sort of shield, you can get rid of the shields, so it's certainly a really good combo. Then again, you don't always necessarily need to start the game off with Angry Lampyridae, you could also start off with Tunnel Maker and just take out one of the enemy monsters in one hit. And if you do happen to do that, there's really no need to have 2 AoEs, because it's going to be a 3 against 2 battle, then it's going to be a 3 against 1 battle, so you don't really need 2 AoEs that only have a 90% accuracy. And also keep in mind that this monster doesn't necessarily have the highest speed, he's one of the slower monsters in the game, so realistically in the battle he might end up going last. So again, it really depends on your playing style, it really depends on the team war. There's like so many scenarios for this monster, because his stats, they're just not that great. His trait also isn't that great. Like I said, if it's meant to counter Baba Yaga, then it's fantastic, but other than that, like, it's kind of hard to really use this monster. So for runes, there's different options. You can go 2 strength runes and a speed rune if you want to give him the attacker build, which I personally would recommend Shadow Buckler, Atum Fanatic, Angry Lampyridae, and Tunnel Maker. Or you can treat this monster just sort of like your treachery monster that you put 3 team speed runes on just to help your main deny monster go first, and then use him just for his effects, just to remove those shields, just to apply quicksand, just to AoE blind the enemy. That's totally a viable option. You could also mix up the runes. You can give him a team life rune to help all of your monsters survive. Because this monster isn't a deny monster, and because he isn't the strongest monster, it's kind of hard to tell you guys exactly what to do with him. So if you do happen to get this monster, it's best to build him to fit your playing style. Build him however he's going to help you progress in the game. Whether that be all team speed, whether that be a team life and team speed, whether that be 2 strength and a speed, build him however he's going to benefit you the most. And with that being said, that is going to conclude this analysis. My overall opinion of this monster is that he's a little underwhelming, especially for a bodyguard monster. I'm still waiting for that bodyguard monster that is insanely good, but so far it hasn't really come out. I am a fan of the fact that this monster has a 70 damage skill that applies quicksand, and I do very much like that he has a special base 60 damage skill with a 1 turn cooldown, and I love that he has AoE blind, but his stats in this trait I'm not too fond of. So overall, not really a fan of this monster. I do love that he seems like the perfect counter to Baba Yaga, but other than that, not really liking him. And I want to hear from all of you guys. What do you think about him? Do you think he's good? Do you think he's not so good? I think I was reading on the wiki, it's kind of mixed opinions. Some people say he's good, others say he's not so good. So I'm curious to know what all of you guys think. So please share with me your thoughts in the comments below. With that being said, I'm RRabbits, and like always, remember to dream big and pursue your passions.